Now, breaking news from KARE 11.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us tonight. As we come on the air, we bring you news of the arrest and apprehension of shooting suspect Vance Boelter, the man who had been the focus of a manhunt for hours today in the area of Green Isle near a home that he owned. We can report that he has been apprehended, as you can see from this picture that was just put out on social media by Sheriff Bob Fletcher. They obviously apprehended him alive in that area that they had been searching since early this morning around 7 a.m. and we understand that he was arrested today in a field.
And so we have a lot of new details about this arrest that happened just within the last hour. We also have new details from the crimes themselves because the Hennepin County Attorney has already written a criminal complaint, and he will be charged with 2 counts of second-degree murder and 2 counts of attempted murder as soon as he is able to be brought into custody.
So welcome news, obviously, for everyone in that Green Isle neighborhood. They had been on edge last night knowing that he owned property in that area and that he was clearly an armed and dangerous man. Also, we know it is welcome news for all kinds of elected officials who are currently holding office and those who have held office in the past. Already tonight, House Speaker Lisa Demuth put out a statement clarifying and saying that she was relieved. Dean Phillips, who served for the 3rd Congressional District for several years, also tweeted out that he had been on that list, thanking lawmakers for their efforts. We know people across the state will be relieved that they have apprehended and arrested suspected shooter Vance Boelter tonight. And again, we believe it happened about an hour ago in a field not far from that home he owned on Green Isle. We had been watching that scene all day and have video of the massive police presence that was in the Green Isle area since 7 a.m. this morning. They had Bearcats, armored vehicles, and we do know they were also using drones to help search for him. And he was found in a field, as we showed you all the images of what a bucolic area this is and how many areas they had to search from outbuildings like this one. We know they also went door to door to all the property owners in that area and searched their homes as well. It's a population of about 600 people there in Green Isle, and his car was found on Highway 25, not far from his home, about 5 miles from his home at 7 a.m., a car that he'd been using. Authorities believed they found that car parked there along with a hat that he had been wearing. Our Ian Russell has been in that area all afternoon and into the evening and is near that scene where Vance Boelter was apprehended tonight. Ian, what are you seeing?
Well, Julie, things have quieted down quite a bit from just the past 10 minutes or so when all of those law enforcement officials were here wrapping up, arresting and taking into custody Vance Boelter. Was just up here at a home on the right side of the road here on 200th Street here, just a little bit, maybe a mile or 2 or so down the road from Boelter's Green Isle home here, where they say they found him in a field. Not far, obviously, from that home where we saw so much law enforcement activity kind of throughout the day, coming into that home, searching around and going door to door. As we were kind of driving around this afternoon and into the early part of the evening, we saw sort of convoys of cars, Bearcats and armored vehicles and squad cars going door to door in this neighborhood. Right down the road, 3/4 of a mile to a mile, just asking people and searching their property to see if he was anywhere near there. Clearly, right down the street here in this field directly to my right. As I said, the law enforcement has since moved out in the past 10 minutes or so, where they were celebrating with each other, saying, "Hey man, I love you. Congratulations. Thank you. We got this guy." Just celebrating this arrest of Vance Boelter here. As I said, we are not far down the road from where his home is located and where they were searching most of the afternoon and in the early part of today, where they found that black Buick and that cowboy hat that they think is his or I think could be connected. I mean, all these different things is just right down the street from us, maybe a mile or two, less than a 10-minute drive from where we currently are. So clearly not too far from where kind of this all kicked off this morning and lasting into the night here. But as I said, law enforcement, as they were wrapping up, just said they found him in a field. So they weren't able to tell me too many more details past that, but they said he was just right there, just right next to us, right down the street here. So yeah, huge news here for law enforcement as they get him tonight.
And thank you so much, Ian. And so you talked a little bit about the locations there. What brought them out there again was the car, that Buick that he had been believed to be driving, and a cowboy hat that he was wearing on that surveillance video. Just explain where, in relation to that, was he actually found, and how close is that to his actual house over there? And I mean, obviously we'll find out later if he had been hiding in that field all day, but just kind of paint a picture once again of the location of everything in that area there compared to where he was found.
So direction-wise, if directly behind me is north, the way that I'm facing is south here, so this would be east and then west over my shoulder. This direction over here is that State Highway 25, 311, 301st, and 291, I think, were the roads that they were searching there earlier. I believe it was 301st was where they were actually looking at that Buick, where we saw law enforcement moving through fields, moving through groves of trees, looking at things and searching for any sort of evidence. I'd say it's less than 5 miles from where that Buick was found to where we currently are. We are south west of where that area was. This is where Boelter's Green Isle home is, just right down the road, maybe a mile and a half or so, and around a little bit of bend. We're on 200th right now, and it kind of runs into and intersects 341st. So we are not far at all from, one, his home, but two, where they have been searching most of the day. 5 miles, if that, from where they were searching earlier, a mile and a half from his Green Isle home here.
I thought it was so interesting that you saw that reaction from law enforcement, that they were hugging each other. They're so relieved. A very long day for them and a stressful day as well. This wasn't as if they were looking for a missing person. They were looking for someone they believed to be armed and dangerous and not afraid to open fire on police officers. Already we have messages pouring in on social media from lawmakers and others saying thank you to law enforcement, because they have been at it since all of this began transpiring, 2 a.m. the night before last, and especially today, just searching all those fields, searching the woods, searching the outbuildings, and every time they're going into a new location, not knowing what they could be met with. So we're so thankful that this came to a peaceful conclusion tonight. We are understanding that at 10:30, we are anticipating a press conference from officials at the Emergency Operations Center to update us on exactly how they found him. We're hoping they'll give us all of those details. We have our Morgan Wolf live at the Emergency Operations Center now, waiting for that press conference to begin. Morgan?
Yeah, Julie, I got back here just within the last 20 minutes or so, and things are moving right now. We have a crew setting up cameras, and we are just waiting for them to give us the word on who exactly will be coming to speak to us. Earlier today, we did hear from the BCA Superintendent, Drew Evans, who gave us more details on what was happening today and spoke about the search that they had going on in Green Isles. And so we're hoping to learn more information on how they actually took him into custody and the steps that led them there to that position in the field. We have a lot of questions right now at this moment, and so we are here at the command center and we're ready to ask them. Back to you.
All right, Morgan, thank you so much. We appreciate it. We'd like to ask folks in our control room if we can get that picture up again that Sheriff Bob Fletcher tweeted out of his arrest. You can see it obviously looks like he was apprehended in some kind of field. And Lou, you were noting it looks like he's still wearing a dark blue shirt with some sort of coverall over the top.
And it looks very similar to what he was wearing on that surveillance video where he had the creepy mask on. And it looks like he just put this other coat on top of it. It's very similar to what he was wearing when he committed the crimes, allegedly.
You had a chance to look over the criminal complaint, and there were some details there about the Brooklyn Park scene and what they found scattered around outside of that scene.
Yeah, this criminal complaint gives new details actually all the way from the beginning, where the 911 call at 2:05 a.m. came to Champlin Police from the Hoffman residence, and it was their daughter who called 911 to report that her parents had been shot by a man wearing a mask. It goes on to say that when Brooklyn Park Police heard about the shooting of a lawmaker, they thought, and it repeats here, that they thought to go check on the Hortman residence, and the details there have been already reported, but some new details that are in here is that inside his vehicle, they found at least 3 AK-47 assault rifles, a 9mm handgun, as well as a list of names and addresses of other public officials. Now, they then went on to search around the area there, and it says they found the ballistic vest that he had basically taken off and left behind, a disassembled 9mm firearm, the mask he was wearing, and a gold police-style badge. They did checks on the gun purchases and found that he had purchased at least 4 of those firearms that have been recovered.
That's just so chilling. And I want to take a moment and pause and give great kudos to the Brooklyn Park Police for having the presence of mind to say that was a lawmaker. Let's check on the Hortman's house. Sadly, they couldn't save the Hortmans, but they met that gunman.
And possibly prevented him from going to the next place.
Onto names on that list. We know there are about 70 names on that list of current and former lawmakers, and it's just an absolute miracle that they said, you know, we better go check on Representative Hortman in her home.
And these charges are ready to go so that tomorrow he could be charged in Hennepin County with these murder charges. There would be a grand jury convened to upgrade them to first degree because first degree is premeditated murder and no doubt the facts in here. But the way that it works procedurally is that the second degree is the first thing that they charge. Then a grand jury upgrades it to first degree. And then we'll also look to see if there are federal charges that come as well.
So, and at this point, we know there were lower level federal charges that the U.S. attorney had been looking into, but those could be upgraded as well. Now that he's in custody, of course, all of this is going to start to play out through the courts. We're incredibly grateful that he's in custody tonight, and this had been a story I know that gripped not only people here in our state, but across the country as well. So kudos to our law enforcement officials. This is the statement that Representative House Speaker Lisa Demuth put out tonight on social media. I'm grateful that this nightmare has come to an end with a suspected murderer captured alive so he can be charged, prosecuted, and punished for the horror he has wrought on our state. Thank you to the brave men and women of local, state, and federal law enforcement who have worked around the clock to ensure that this evil man faces justice. And she is speaking for likely thousands tonight who feel that same way. There again is Vance Boelter, the 57-year-old man that has been the subject of a massive nationwide manhunt, really, for the last 2 days. We know that there was fear that he was trying to leave the Twin Cities area. In fact, one of the first press conferences the BCA held with Drew Evans, they said, we believe he's trying to leave the area, and they were concerned about that. So it's interesting that he decided to not only not leave the area, but to be so close to a property that authorities clearly knew that he owned, that farmstead that it looked like in Green Isle. Right after these shootings, that morning shortly thereafter, there were armored vehicles parked outside that home. So he clearly knew that law enforcement was aware that he owned a property there, and yet here he is tonight, about an hour ago, apprehended only a mile or so from that home.
It's hard to believe that he would be able to make it back there undetected because they searched the home yesterday. We were there yesterday when it had a huge law enforcement presence. And then at 6 or 7 this morning, that vehicle was discovered and the cowboy hat there was no attempt to hide it whatsoever. The car was just pulled off on the side of the road, cowboy hat placed right in front. Clearly the same hat that he was wearing on the surveillance video. And he apparently went from there to just a couple miles to the west toward where his house is. And who knows how long he was just essentially lying there waiting.
Hiding in the woods. You know, we had talked earlier, and there is that Buick earlier today being towed away from the scene. We know it had Minnesota plates and that it was the subject of what they call a BOLO alert, to be on the lookout for, because law enforcement knew that that was a car that he could be driving. Lou, you did some investigative work and found that it was registered to a different person. It's not under his name,
That's
at least.
correct. It's another person's name, Minnesota man, and we haven't named him because we don't know if he's connected in any way or why that Vance Boelter was driving this other man's vehicle. But yeah, it was in another man's name, and throughout this whole thing, they weren't ruling out the possibility that Vance Boelter had help. And so this name went out in the Be on the Lookout alert in South Dakota as well. But apparently that vehicle never made it to South Dakota because it was found so close to home.
A couple things we learned today as this investigation was ongoing. We also learned from a press conference with authorities that what has been described as a manifesto really wasn't what you might think of as a typical manifesto. When you hear that word, you think someone has written pages and pages out on a particular political ideology that they feel very strongly about. He said it was more, Drew Evans, the head of the BCA, said it was more like a notebook that had all these names listed of current and former politicians, and also some Planned Parenthood locations, and thoughts in there that led them to believe he had very strong opinions on the issue of abortion. We did speak with a roommate in his home in North Minneapolis, which is a place where he rented a room because he did some odd jobs around the Minneapolis area and would crash there a couple times a week. And his roommate said that he didn't talk a lot about politics, that he had no idea that Vance Boelter, a man he'd known since 4th grade, was capable of this kind of violence, if in fact he is the shooter, as police believe that he is. So he was shocked. But again, that manifesto that we've heard so much about did not appear to be some long written out ideology on any particular political topic.
One thing that the criminal complaint does add, that he did have addresses for other elected officials, and so it's with these 70 names, at least other addresses as well of politicians, and that would be the assumption, is that he planned on making more stops after that one.
Can you speak at all to the federal charges that might be forthcoming and the penalties involved?
Well, so I was in Tucson, Arizona when Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords was shot, and because she was a congresswoman, a federal politician, they were able to charge a special murder charge in federal law for that. That doesn't exactly exist just because the victims in this case were state lawmakers. However, remember the Luigi Mangione case that recently involved the murder of Brian Thompson? They charged a terrorism charge, and they were able to say, because the murder itself was meant to strike fear in others, and so if they want to use something like that, they could apply something like that, and they could seek the death penalty if they choose to do that.
All right, so all those charges, of course, will be forthcoming, as will a press conference here from officials at about 10:15 tonight. We want to let you know as well, we have 2 active situations that are still ongoing in communities here in the metro. We have a couple different neighborhoods that are under shelter-in-place orders. One of them is in Eagan, and one of them is in Maple Grove. And of course, because this was an ongoing situation, there was a manhunt going on for Vance Boelter. People in those communities were wondering if those were related. We can tell you that authorities told us the one in Eagan, which has been going on for quite a while, is not related at all to this investigation, and we believe the shelter.
I heard back from Maple Grove, and that's not related.
And that's not either. It's a shooting or a shooter.
Well, it's just that it's not related to this case at all.
Okay.
They confirmed.
So it's an unrelated, nonetheless, I'm sure a frightening situation for people in those neighborhoods, but not related to their search for the suspect, who again they found in a field near his home in Green Isle, Minnesota, which is about 45 minutes southwest of the Twin Cities. But a lot going on, an active night for law enforcement, even outside of this case that they've been working on so diligently. But we know lawmakers tonight breathing a sigh of relief that this man is apprehended. But of course, his actions just really highlight how vitriolic everything has become in our society around politics, and there will be a lot of discussions going on about security for our lawmakers. We know that Minority Leader Chuck Schumer has been calling for more security for people at the federal level, for our Congress members there, and that they did increase security at the U.S. Capitol as well in light of this shooting. So that will be another conversation that will be had after the actions, we believe, of this man on your screen that was apprehended tonight.
One other thing to mention, when there was that press conference earlier today, Drew Evans gave an update, but it really didn't sound as if they were close to getting him at that point. So it'll be interesting to see now, in hindsight, they put this information out not just to give us and the public the information, but also knowing that the suspect potentially could be hearing anything they say. It'll be interesting to see if they actually were closer to catching him than we knew at the time.
Yeah, and there was a fear that he would be found after deciding that he would rather take himself out of the equation than face the charges that he'll be facing. I know a lot of people, as Leader Dameworth said, are very happy that he will face charges and a punishment, and if in fact he is the shooter, as they believe he is tonight. So I agree with you. When we listened to that press conference, it really sounded like, hey, we're still searching. But it will be interesting to say, what was it that outside of that car and that hat that were keeping him in that area? We know they had the assistance of so many different law enforcement agencies, including federal agencies, to help them find him. There were departments on scene, from Eagan to the ATF FBI. This was really a joint effort by, it appeared to be hundreds of law enforcement personnel to capture him tonight.
Right toward the end of our earlier broadcasts, our reporters at the scene were seeing them converge closer to that area, and they were seeing them putting more drones up in the air as part of the search. And then we've talked about the various kind of technology that they have now, just traditional drones that they can take video and get closer without, getting themselves, they can get a bird's eye view. And as well as thermal imaging, where they can see warm spots where there are people or animals to help them narrow in on searches like this. Those are often used in search and rescue efforts, and in something like this, it's the same thing for looking for a suspect.
Now, you said that you had experience with Congresswoman Gifford's attempt, or her shooting, and that case also, there were all kinds of narratives that grew up around it before people had actual information. One big message that was being sent by the BCA during their press conference was, please do not buy into all the conspiracy theories. Please do not share misinformation on this case, because everyone wants to have the answers right now, and we really don't have any. And I think that was, obviously, if you spend any time at all on social media, you see that there are lots of theories out there, some of them involving his wife, who we don't know if she had any inkling that this is what he was planning to do. We don't know if she had any involvement at all. All we know is that she was questioned earlier today.
Yeah, Drew Evans put it very well. He said, we want easy answers to complex situations. But the truth is, these complex situations don't have easy answers. And why would it make sense for a guy who's trying to get away to come back home like this? I mean, a place that they obviously are keeping an eye on, and people are going to be on high alert.
The other thing you had noted earlier that didn't make much sense is that picture that we all saw of him with that cowboy hat on after the shootings was apparently taken outside of a bank because he was withdrawing money from a bank after the shootings. And everyone would, in today's day and age, knows that there are going to be lots of cameras outside of banks and those locations. So maybe indicating this is not the mastermind that many have kind of painted him to be.
Right. And you know what's probably going on right now, as soon as they get him back to a police station, is they will ask if he'd be willing to talk with them in interrogation. If he doesn't call for an attorney immediately, they can get some answers directly from him if he is willing to give them. And so I don't anticipate that we'll be able to hear much about that at this 10:30 press conference, because it'll be so soon. But perhaps by tomorrow, we'll find out if Vance Boelter provided police with any answers when they sat down and talked with him back at the police station.
As the more we learned about this man, the more questions I think we got than answers. A very, I don't know how to put this, not a sketchy, but a very diverse background in different jobs, a general manager at a 7-Eleven, and then he's in the Congo because he said he founded a group called Red Lion that was in charge of food distribution in Africa. Also appeared to style himself somewhat as a preacher. We have video of him delivering what appears to be a sermon in the Congo, and we know he was on this board for workforce development. Yeah,
and perhaps strangest of all is that he had a so-called security company that, if you look at the website, it looks very legitimate, a security company. But then his friend told us that that's just kind of a pipe dream that he hasn't been able to get off the ground.
Yes,
and so he
but made it look as if they had all this experience, not only in national security, international security. And he made it appear that he has led operations or been part of international PSYOP operations around the world. It is worth noting that there is a lot of skepticism around many of the claims that he made in his various bios that we've been able to find online.
And then we did clarify some more information tonight about the board that he was appointed to by Governor Dayton and Governor Walz. We learned that it is a nonpartisan board, meaning a person's politics do not come into play at all on whether they're appointed to it. And like we mentioned before, it's not a cabinet position where they offer advice to the governor.
Or even have conversations with the governor directly.
And have any role in making laws or anything like that. And we also confirmed that Governor Walz did not know him.
Yes, his office has said he did not know who this person was. And it's worth noting that there are hundreds of people that serve on these types of boards. And the board that we're talking about, as Lou said, had about 60 members. Senator John Hoffman was one of them. And we do want to take a moment to let you know that today, both Senator John Hoffman and his wife Yvette, who we understand were shot, one 8 times, the other 9 times by this, we believe, this suspect. They are both alert tonight, and they said they'll put out a statement when they're able. But we do know that Yvette has been emailing and texting. Senator Amy Klobuchar did share a text she received from Yvette Hoffman that said they're grateful to be alive, and that they do have a long road ahead, though. As you can imagine, if you've been shot 8 or 9 times, a lot of surgery in the future. So we continue to hold them up and pray for their full recovery after this ordeal. And of course, our hearts go out to the 2 grown children of the Hortmans. Just a horrific events for that family. Let's head back out to Ian Russell, our reporter, who has been out on the scene all afternoon and watching all the different developments and movements from law enforcement. We've seen them kind of gather around an area, seem to search, move those cars. You've been with them the whole way, Ian. And to be able to see them giving each other hugs and congratulating each other had to feel pretty good from your perspective as well, I imagine.
Yeah, and you know, Julie, it's almost eerily quiet. You know, this area is very rural out here. All around us right now, it's pitch black. It's just the storm clouds that have kind of been moving through overhead. But otherwise, it's soybean fields and cornfields and houses miles and miles apart from each other. And it's quiet now. And obviously, that has not really been the case at all today. It's been law enforcement working. It's been them going to different locations here in Sibley County. It's been them checking on things, trying to find Vance Boelter. So to see it back like this, how it normally is such a almost kind of jarring thing to see. As we've kind of been talking about, we are right where they found Vance Boelter, in this field right next to us, down this driveway to my right-hand side here. And as we talked about, you know, law enforcement has kind of been in multiple different locations here throughout the county, whether it was about 5 miles away on State Highway 25 and 301st to his home, which is a mile or so down the road from us right now, just continually working and looking to find him. And Julie, as you mentioned, sort of those, that congratulations, that, hey man, congrats, I love you, thank you, you know, all these different things that we heard. You know, in moments like this, we've talked about how dangerous these situations are. Obviously, you know, with an armed person like this who is shot at people, obviously law enforcement is doing what they can to be careful and be safe as they try to track him down. So to be able to take him in like this, and as far as we know, no one hurt or anything like that. I mean, obviously that's a huge, massive feeling of relief for them as they're able to get him into custody and get him out of here. As we said, just laying or in a cornfield or a soybean field. It's hard to tell, obviously, because it's pitch black out here, but just so close to where they've been for the past 2 days, just looking around for him. So obviously just a huge moment of relief and joy, and just all these emotions coming out from these folks who were working to get him into custody here.
All right, Ian, thanks so much. We can leave some of those pictures up and read to you the social media posts from Ramsey County Sheriff Bob Fletcher when he put up the picture that we've been showing you of this suspect apprehended. He said, "It's the face of evil. After relentless and determined police work, the killer is now in custody thanks to the dedication of multiple agencies working together along with support from the community. Justice is one step closer." And once he was apprehended, I know you got your hands on the criminal complaint, Lou. One thing we'd been talking about was the fact that Hope Hoffman, whose mother Yvette had covered her to protect her from the bullets, obviously was a witness here that could have provided details to police. Did we learn anything about that in the criminal complaint?
Yeah, so she is the one who made the initial 911 call and reported that a man with a mask had shot her parents. They took the video surveillance. We've shown the video surveillance of him with the creepy mask on. That was from the Hoffman home, we now know. And on that footage, they have video of him with the mask on, knocking on the door and announcing himself as a police officer. So that is how he was able to gain entry to the house, and that's where he shot the Hoffmans there. The video surveillance then showed him flee the residence, get into his, what they call a police-style vehicle, because it had the blue and red lights on it. And what he was wearing was a mask, a blue shirt, a police-style tactical vest with a badge, and a yellow gripped gun in his hand.
Just horrifying. And we still don't know why there was such a major time lapse between Champlin and the Brooklyn Park residence.
It was about an hour and a half before Brooklyn Park police caught him in the act there, essentially. I guess we don't know what time he actually arrived at Brooklyn Park, so we don't know. You know, it would only take 10 minutes to
Right.
get there driving, so we don't know why
there was that lapse right now in that period of time. But we do know when he ran from that house, he clearly stripped off some things: the vest, the badge, a disassembled gun.
Yeah, disassembled a gun. And beyond that, he still had 3 AK-47 assault rifles in his vehicle, as well as another 9mm handgun. And so with the disassembled gun, the AK-47s he left behind, and the 9mm he left behind, perhaps he wasn't even armed anymore when police took him into custody, which, you know, thankfully, again, him getting caught the way that he did in the act maybe prevented him from being armed moving forward.
Yeah, it's incredible police work by Brooklyn Park Police. So thoughtful and present of them to say, let's check out other lawmakers' homes in the area.
And as Julie, one more thing, as we talk about, you know, poignant images, of course, this one posted by Ramsey County Sheriff Bob Fletcher. If we could take a look for Julie Blaha, the state auditor, has a picture taken from Yvette Hossman's hospital room of her watching the coverage on TV with this very picture showing.
Oh.
And so that's something that we should pull up and show to people as well.
Can you even imagine the relief? We talk about for the other lawmakers who know that their names were on that list, but to think about the Hoffmans, to know that this person is not coming back, that this person has been apprehended, must be a huge relief, because it's hard to imagine the horror they went through. Even just seeing that image of him in the mask, and we now know that is what they were presented with when they opened the door. It's too horrifying, really, to even imagine. So we're so happy for them as well that they can rest easier tonight knowing that he has been apprehended. We were told there would be a press conference with law enforcement agencies coming up at 10:30. We're a little bit past 10:30 now, but we are waiting for them to come to the podium and give us details on how they apprehended Vance Boelter this evening. That would have been about an hour and a half ago, we believe. Our Morgan Wolf is there live. Morgan, you see just reporters right now or photographers walking past you. Any sign yet of the officials, or any idea which officials are going to speak?
You know, Julie, we actually just got that update about 10 minutes ago that they are running behind, and so we are just patiently standing by here. And actually, if we could show you the room right now of the amount of reporters and photographers that have joined in here. We have people from Network News. We have our local friends here, our counterparts over at different stations in Minneapolis. And so everyone is standing by here waiting to hear updates from investigators. We are anticipating that we can hear from BCA Superintendent Drew Evans. He has been our point person basically throughout this investigation, giving us those significant updates here at the command center. We do not have any other official word of who else could be here at this point, so we do not want to speculate. But Drew Evans has been very communicative to us and has actually been very transparent. And usually the BCA can be a little tighter-lipped on their investigations, but with the threat to the public that Vance Boelter had, there was, of course, the urgency to share as much information that they could without jeopardizing their investigation. So we're, like I said, standing by here. We just heard that they're running a little behind on that presser, but we'll be sure to let you know as soon as it starts.
All right, Morgan, we appreciate it. We know you're standing by. Thanks so much. Give us a heads up when they arrive, and we'll be sure to go live right away to that press conference. You know, it seems like it was longer ago than just 2 days ago that all of this began to unfold. And we first saw those images of that house in North Minneapolis where the alleged shooter would sometimes go for a couple nights a week. And so that's another neighborhood that has to be resting a little easier tonight, if in fact this was the shooter they believe that he is.
And concerning the Green Isle neighbors, Joe, our reporter who was down there all day today, told us, you know, how scared they were last night knowing that that's where he was from. for him to have returned this morning, I couldn't imagine what it would be like for them to sleep tonight knowing that he came back if he had not been caught.
Right. We're grateful that they will be able to have a better night's sleep. We do want to update you as well on two separate stories. There's a shelter in place in Egan. There's a shelter in place right now in Maple Grove. Neither of those scenes is related to the manhunt for Vance Boelter. They're not giving out, we have reached out to both police departments, and they're not giving out many details at all right now. We have a reporter on the scene in Maple Grove, and we'll let you know if we hear anything. But so far, from our understanding, those are still in effect, not related to this investigation, but nonetheless, obviously, concerning situations for folks that live in Maple Grove and Egan. But we are watching those situations, and we will let you know if we get an update. Joe McCoy just texted, still an active scene, but some law enforcement have left the area where he is in Maple Grove. So not really any updates there tonight.
You know, it'll be very interesting to find out how this apprehension took place, because one detail that Ian provided us is that they knew where he was for at least an hour before they made the arrest. They just had to get all their ducks in a row for safety reasons, without letting him know that they were onto him before they finally took him in.
Every detail in this case has been jaw-dropping or fascinating, and it's hard to imagine how they felt knowing that they had likely found him, and then they had to be patient, and they had to make sure they were doing this the right way, so no law enforcement officers, and also that he could be brought into custody safely.
Another key question now that he's brought into custody will be if he had any help.
Yes.
Because as we reported, his wife was stopped, detained for a short period of time, potentially items with her taken from the vehicle where she was up north in Onamia with other family members. And there was a question about text messages that he had sent her, and whether that indicated that she knew what he was planning or had information after he had done what he had done.
Yeah.
So that's all part of what's coming in the mix here, and hopefully we can get some answers to those questions. I did reach out to his wife, Jenny, to ask for comment after his arrest here. I've not heard back yet.
Well, and we do know that whatever questioning or searching they did of her car, Drew Evans from the BCA did confirm that she was not in custody. So
Meaning she wasn't arrested.
Correct.
Yes.
So they had questioned her, and
they definitely downplayed, they said, of course we're always going to talk to family members, but again, there's always that element of police downplaying because they know who's listening when they say things like that at a press conference before somebody's arrested.
Yes, and as they search those farm fields and those outbuildings today, we know that many of you here in the Twin Cities were watching as massive convoys of law enforcement vehicles were heading southwest to that area in Sibley County to participate in that search. So I believe Drew Evans said at the press conference there were more than 100 or hundreds of law enforcement officers down there participating in that search as well. So we are again waiting on that press conference to begin, so we get some official word and details on the actions of law enforcement tonight, and we're so grateful that Vance has been apprehended.
So there is another detail in the criminal complaint that I overlooked before now, and assuming that everything is up to speed here with the way it played out, but it makes it sound as if when the Brooklyn Park officer arrived, the shooting was just taking place, because it says in the complaint that the officer witnessed him shoot into the home through the open door.
Oh, so he was going in, not necessarily just coming out when the officers arrived.
That's the way that it's phrased in here, so that's a follow-up question that we'll need to ask.
And I did feel like throughout all of our coverage, we had the sense that the Hortmans had already been shot. Officers arrived on scene, and he came out of that door, and they exchanged fire.
Right, and what it says here is that the officer saw the defendant, still dressed as a police officer, shoot an adult man referred to as victim 2 through the open door of the home.
Wow. It's also frightening, and you think about what those officers have been through as well, knowing how dangerous this shooter, presumably Vance Boelter, actually was and is. We talked with one of our reporters, Heidi Wigdahl, today, went to North Minneapolis and talked to some neighbors there that were kind of swept in to this whole ordeal. Heidi's standing by in the studio today. If we can bring up a shot from her and just talk to her about what she learned today that those neighbors lived through in North Minneapolis. We know that the law enforcement brought in a vehicle with a battering ram to get the front door open to the home where Vance Boelter would occasionally stay during the week when he was working odd jobs. And Heidi, you talked to a neighbor that was really brought in unbeknownst to her to this entire investigation. Can you explain to us what she saw and heard and lived through?
Yeah, Julie, just across the street is Kamiko White. She has 4 children, all under the age of 11, and they were actually playing outside in their yard in the morning when she heard a knock on the side door, a huge bang. She went to the door, and it was 2 officers there saying they needed to gain entry into her house. They didn't tell her what was going on, why they needed to be there. So she quickly went and grabbed her kids, got them inside the house. Then they started asking her about the best rooms, the best windows that would give them the vantage point of this home. So they ended up in Kamiko's, in her room upstairs. 2 officers were in that, and she streamed the whole thing on Facebook Live. A lot of those images can be found on her Facebook. She said these 2 officers went into her home and laid out just a ton of guns and pointed a gun at this home. And in total, they were in her home for about 5 hours. They told her to get the kids into a room away from those windows facing the front. So they basically had to stay in one room, those 4 kids. Her kids obviously were very terrified about the situation, not knowing what was going on. And she said also at this time, they actually didn't know. There were undercover officers in the neighborhood, but it wasn't this presence that you're seeing right now in this video. And so she had a moment where she knew that there was this suspect out here, Vance Boelter, who was impersonating an officer. And so she had a moment where at first she felt scared. Were these actually officers? She actually called her mom and her stepdad and asked them if they could call 911 and verify this. And so her stepdad did call 911 and was able to verify that indeed this was legitimate. And then as you saw with that video, she looked outside her window and sure enough, MPD SWAT teams were there calling for Vance Boelter to come outside of the house, saying that they had a search warrant and that he should step outside of the house and be arrested. And again, she captured all of this on camera. Then they basically said thank you and left her house. Her children were so upset and terrified they didn't want to stay in the house. They all slept in the living room together last night. And she said they were so terrified that the 3 oldest kids actually didn't stay in the house all day today. So I know obviously she is very relieved to hear that he has been caught.
Yeah, so many people that were kind of on the periphery of this that had experiences that will stay with them for a very long time because it was such a scary scene. And there were so many unknowns as this was all unfolding over the last 2 days. It's kind of hard to imagine having a SWAT team hold up in your house, especially after we'd repeatedly been saying this person is imitating an officer. So we appreciate your reporting tonight, Heidi, and glad that everybody in that house is safe tonight.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Heidi. We are, again, standing by. We're waiting for this press conference from law enforcement. We do understand now, it has been confirmed that the governor will also be in attendance at the Emergency Operations Center to give an update on the apprehension of this individual. The last time we heard from the governor was the morning, Saturday morning, that first press conference when he spoke about his relationship with Speaker Emeritus Melissa Hortman, saying that, you know, what an incredible individual she was and also a close personal friend. He was incredibly and understandably emotional in that press conference. So we will once again be hearing from him tonight as law enforcement gives us details on how they apprehended the suspect. And
the arrest comes after a full day of investigation and searching. Okay, I understand that we are ready to start the press conference there.
Let's go live to the Emergency Operations Center where we'll hear from law enforcement
Minnesota
tonight.
Governor Walz.
Let's listen in.
After that, Department of Public Safety Commissioner Bob Jacobson, Jacobson. After that, Bureau of Criminal Apprehension Superintendent Drew Evans, EVANS. After that, you'll be hearing from Brooklyn Park Police Department Chief Mark Bruley, Mark Bruley, and then State Patrol Colonel Geiger. G-E-I-G-E-R. Yep. I'm sorry, I'll get that for you. Lieutenant Colonel Geiger from the Minnesota State Patrol. Yep. Yes.
Jeremy. J-A. Sorry, J-E-R-E-M-Y. What was that?
Jeremy.
Common spelling.
Who are these last Police Chief
Mark. Yes, Bruley.
And it's Jeremy, G-E-I-G-E-R.
G-E-I-G-E-R is last name Geiger, correct.
And it's Lieutenant Colonel?
Correct.
You can see there they're just getting media members ready for the lineup of speakers, making sure we have all the names of the law enforcement leaders who will be speaking, how you spell their names. This is all customary before these press conferences begin. And it sounds like there will be a long list of people speaking tonight, from law enforcement, from chiefs of police to our governor, I'm sure the BCA. Just getting everything organized there tonight.
It'll be interesting to hear everyone's thoughts on the arrest being made and justice being able to be achieved in this case for the deaths that Mr. Boelter allegedly caused. You know, the old saying is that they often take the easy way out, meaning that someone in that position would kill themselves or die by police rather than face the consequences for something they did. And so I think that a lot of my sources I talked to were afraid that they were not going to find him alive.
Yeah, that he would never face justice. But we're happy to report tonight he obviously is, and they have been. I agree with Morgan. Law enforcement has been a little more forthcoming with these press conferences and taking more questions from reporters than they maybe normally do. And we know you have a lot of questions. We have a lot of questions. We're hopeful that we'll get all of those answered tonight. Our AJ Legault is someone that's been doing some excellent reporting along with you, Lou Ragoose. We've had really great teams out in the field and behind the scenes working their forces. We were going to talk to AJ, but now it looks like we can go live to the Emergency Operations Center where the press conference is getting underway. And I believe this is the governor at the podium.
Good evening. After a two-day manhunt, 2 sleepless nights, law enforcement have apprehended Vance Boelter. That's 48 hours that law enforcement involved in a complex and dangerous manhunt. Spent Father's Day away from their families to deliver justice for Melissa and Mark Hortman and their children who spent this Father's Day alone. To the law enforcement who stand here and the hundreds who were involved in this, the state of Minnesota owes you a deep debt of gratitude. Thank you. You ran towards the danger and you served the state of Minnesota. This is a great example of coordination and collaboration. Multiple agencies, federal, state, and local, coordinating together in a way to protect the public and close this hunt around. Multiple agencies were there as FBI laid hands on it and Minnesota State Patrol put the handcuffs on. One man's unthinkable actions have altered the state of Minnesota. Melissa Hortman was the core of who our values were. She had a hand in so many things that happened. The building that we stand in, she helped usher through so that we could respond from the State Emergency Operations Center with the professionalism and giving the tools necessary to law enforcement to do their job. To Melissa and Mark's family, I cannot fathom your pain and the grief that you're going through. We'll take solace in the memory and the work that Melissa did, and you can rest assured that we will put every ounce of effort that the state of Minnesota has to make sure that justice is served and the individual responsible for this serves the time for the unspeakable act. State grieves with you. The latest news is Senator Hoffman came out of final surgery and is moving towards recovery. A vet, is healing. And I think when the story comes out, and I'd like to say on behalf of the state of Minnesota, the heroic actions by the Hoffman family and their daughter Hope saved countless lives, and we are grateful. Bureau of Criminal Apprehension will continue to investigate. We will keep you informed. We'll spare no expense and no work to make sure that that happens. A moment in this country where we watched violence erupt. This cannot be the norm. It cannot be the way that we deal with our political differences. Now's the time for us to recommit to the core values of this country. And each and every one of us can do it. Talk to a neighbor rather than arguing. Debate an issue. Shake hands. Find common ground. This is who Melissa Hortman was. In the first negotiating session that I had a chance to work with her, she got all the partners in the room, and she provided each and every one of us a copy of a book called Getting to Yes. And the whole premise was debating with a sense of goodwill, a sense of trying to come to compromises that serve everyone. And because of her, we did that. Because of her, we did that year after year after year. That's the embodiment of how things are supposed to work. It's not about hatred. It's not about mean tweets. It's not about demeaning someone. It's leading with grace and compassion and vision and compromise and decency. That was taken from us in Minnesota with the murder of Speaker Hortman. So for each and every one of us to truly honor, and we will continue to honor that spirit, but we will need to do it in just more than actions in a memorial. Conducting ourselves in the spirit that Melissa Hortman did her work is what the country needs to heal. I will once again say the deep debt of gratitude. These professionals standing behind us and countless others. This was, you'll hear from them, incredibly complex. And to take this suspect in with no life of life or injuries to civilian population and to bring him in alive so he can serve justice, which he will do in Minnesota, is an incredible thing that we are grateful for. With that, I'm going to turn it over to the professionals, starting with Commissioner of Public Safety for the state of Minnesota, Bob Jacobson. Thank you.
Good evening. It's good to see you all here tonight. Thank you for coming in. My name is Bob Jacobson. I'm the Commissioner of Public Safety. And again, it's my honor to serve in that position. First of all, I want to thank all of the law enforcement agencies that have been working tirelessly over the past 2 years since the shooting at Senator Hoffman's home. The coordination between state, local, and federal law enforcement partners is the reason we are here tonight, and the suspect is in custody. Boelter exploited the trust our uniforms are meant to represent. That betrayal is deeply disturbing to those of us who wear the badge with honor and responsibility. We want to thank community members across the state for their support, for their tips, and their information. And I want to thank Governor Walz for his continued support through this very difficult time. With that, I will pass this off to Superintendent Drew Evans of the BCA. Thank you.
Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Drew Evans. I'm Superintendent of the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. As was noted and was previously described, Vance Boelter was taken into custody in Sibley County. We were with you earlier today when we provided information about the manhunt and the myriad of law enforcement that have come together working in partnership so that this evil cannot be continued. The first step in a case like this is that we take him into custody, and then the work will continue and begin to make sure that we have all the evidence we need to ensure that he is held accountable for his crimes. Please bear with me, but I think it's important because it has been noted by the governor, just to give you some background on the teams that were down there, and I may even be missing some in terms of this because there were law enforcement partners, not just from the Twin Cities, but across the state of Minnesota that came together. From the Brooklyn Park Police Department, the Tri-City SWAT Team, Eagan Police Department, Burnsville Police Department, our South Metro SWAT Team, the FBI, ATF, United States Marshal Service, State Patrol, Washington County Sheriff's Office, Ramsey County Sheriff's Office, the Richfield Police Department, St. Paul Police Department, Bloomington Police Department, Sibley County. We had Riverview Medics, Green Isle Fire Department, and Lifelink in the area, in addition to Prior Lake, Crow River SWAT, and the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office. And again, I may have been missing, and I apologize to my partners for that we do that. I share all of that for you because that's the commitment when this sort of evil is in one of our communities, that law enforcement comes together to put all of their resources together to make sure that that person is taken into custody. That is so that people across the state of Minnesota and legislators that were targeted in these attacks and that may have been listed can breathe a sigh of relief as quickly as possible as we came together in an incredibly complex set of circumstances in that. He was arrested, as you saw earlier this evening, in the area of 35600 block of 200th Street, Green Isle. What happened in that is, as we noted, there was a manhunt going throughout the day in that area that we've discussed previously, and there was information provided that he was seen in the area. When that information was provided to the investigators that were conducting the ground search, they converged on the area with a number of SWAT teams with the assistance of the Air Wing from Minnesota State Patrol, and we'll provide a few more details about the end of coming into custody in a little bit, but he was taken into custody at that time. He is in custody, and a reminder for anybody that was not, when we've previously said that, taken into custody under a state criminal warrant. That information will be made public, if it is not already, detailing the complaint that he is charged in the cases at this time with the murders of Speaker Hortman and her husband, Mark Hortman, also with the shootings in John Hoffman and Yvette Hoffman for those crimes, and will be moving forward. We are also in close contact with our federal partners, both the FBI, United States Attorney's Office, who are examining whether or not additional charges should be brought at the federal level related to this at this time. There is a lot of investigation that continues, and I'm going to turn it over to Chief Bruley to provide some comments on this and the work. I just want to tell, certainly for the communities of Champlin, City of Brooklyn Park, you both have incredibly professional police departments that work day in, day out and tirelessly in this situation to bring justice and work towards that, not only for the families and the loved ones and the community that are impacted, but for the entire state of Minnesota, and our teams are incredibly proud to work alongside them and all the law enforcement partners. And so with that, I will turn it over to Chief Bruley for some comments on this, and the work will continue in partnership with them and others moving forward. Chief.
Good evening. I'm Police Chief Mark Bruley, Brooklyn Park Police Department. Just a few comments. One, I'm very proud to tell you that we took the suspect into custody who was responsible for this. That was within 43 hours of the incident. There's no question that this is the largest manhunt in the state's history. Just down at the scene where he was taken into custody, there was 20 different SWAT teams over an extremely large area hunting this individual down to take him into custody. I believe that the state of Minnesota and certainly the city of Brooklyn Park should be extremely proud of the police officers within the city of Brooklyn Park, but the partnerships that we had are unprecedented between the federal agents, the county, the locals, and others around. It is absolutely an incredible task what went on. Essentially, the Brooklyn Park Police Department was turned over into an operations center, and that's all that hundreds of detectives worked on tirelessly for 43 hours. So while this has come to some conclusion where we've made an arrest, there is a ton of work that needs to be done. So I encourage community members, if there's evidence, information, or other things, please continue to feed that information to the Brooklyn Park Police Department so that we can fully investigate this and present a complete case to both the federal jurisdiction and the Hennepin County Attorney's Office. With that, I'll turn it over to the State Patrol.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jeremy Geiger. I'm the Lieutenant Colonel with the Minnesota State Patrol, the Assistant Chief. The Minnesota State Patrol, along with countless other partners, were responsible for this arrest. The collaborative effort, I cannot stress enough how outstanding that was, helped ensure the suspect's arrest did not result in the injury of any law enforcement that was down there and in the area. We had special response teams on the scene near 200 streets in Sibley County. Several partner law enforcement SWAT teams positioned to form a perimeter at that point in time. The State Patrol also provided the air support that was talked about earlier today. The suspect crawled to law enforcement teams and was placed under arrest at that point in time. There was no use of force by any member of law enforcement that was out there, and the suspect was taken into custody without any use of force. Thank you.
With that, we will open it up for a few questions. Reminder, please introduce yourself, your media organization. If you have a question for one of the specific individuals, please feel free to point that out as well.
My name is Vance Boelter with NBC News. Can I ask to anyone up here who can speak to it, did the suspect make any key mistakes that you feel like has led to his eventual capture?
You know, the question is were there any key mistakes? We certainly, at this point, there's a lot of information we can't share right now in this. What I will tell you is there are some incredibly dedicated law enforcement personnel, criminal intelligence analysts that were out working day in, day out, working together. And what I will tell you is that the public certainly is always of assistance to us in law enforcement, and incredibly diligent people in the area that provided us the assistance that we needed to get our teams that were already down there that last piece over, but they were certainly in the area and working diligently together on that.
It's going to be one at a time, guys.
Drew, Morgan, Care 11. Do you have any indication that anyone helped him?
The question is any indication anybody helped him? We continue to look into that. I don't have anything beyond what we shared earlier today. This investigation, as Chief Bruley noted, will be continuing to expand at this point in time to make sure that we continue to look at all angles of this. And everybody did help him. We will certainly hold them accountable for doing that in this process.
Drew, Adrian brought us from NBC News. Can you tell us how the Hoffmans helped save lives, and what did the suspect say when he was taken into custody?
The question was how the Hoffmans helped save lives, and what did he say? I don't have the specific, and then what did he say when he was taken into custody? I don't have the specifics on what he said when he was taken into custody. You know, we're incredibly grateful that the Hoffmans are still here with us at this point in time, and that they will be hopefully on a continued path to recovery, and that they will provide us the information. We've been able to talk to them today, and they will be providing key information to us as part of this investigation moving forward.
Sir, can I ask you from CBS News, did the suspect have a phone with him when he was caught? Was he tracked in any way, or was it just sightings and tips?
At the end, the question is, did he have a phone with him? I don't have the specifics on everything that was with him when he was arrested at this time. I will say he was armed, and that he came when he was taken into custody, but we'll be sifting through all of that information from there. What's that? I can't on the weapons at this time, so Paul.
Just kind of elaborating on sort of the Hoffman question. To me, the encounter at that Speaker Horton's house, with I believe the Portland Park Police, the gunfire there, the fact that he then had to abandon that vehicle with several weapons and the unsealed criminal complaint. How significant was that for that thing ending further tragedy and ending it with him on the ground in Sibley County?
The question is, again, expanding on the Hoffmans and providing addition. What I'll tell you, Chief Bruley mentioned this yesterday, and his police officers going to check proactively on Speaker Hortman's home at that time. If that had not happened, I have every confidence that this would have continued throughout the day. By his officers encountering him at that, he was forced to abandon the vehicle that he had at that time and lead to what we got to today. So by that incident occurring and the law enforcement communication that was occurring, it allowed the proactive approach that was able to get to the point where they were able to now eventually take him into custody today.
Thank you. I just want to clarify, there's a little bit of detail that the Ramsey County Sheriff has provided. I just wanted to see if we can nail it down. So it's the detail that he had provided to the Star Tribune is that for about an hour, Boelter had tried to evade arrest, and that 8 teams crawled in a ditch to try to corral him. I don't know if you have that level of detail, but additionally, because you were able to take him into custody without incident, what did your law enforcement officers say to him to warn about and how they
So the question is about the teams and then what was done to get him into custody. So we don't get into operational details for the safety of our law enforcement going forward in terms of what it is. But what I can say is the incredible teamwork that was done and the large number of law enforcement certainly put us in a position where they were able to maneuver into this area to safely put him in a place where, you know, I don't know what was going through his head and I wouldn't speculate, but they have incredibly professional teams that are trained on this and how to take somebody into custody, and they provided the commands and he gave up peacefully.
Superintendent Johnny Kaplan from WCCO and CBS News. First, if you could just speak personally for you and all your colleagues. I imagine this is a relief for a lot of you. Can you talk about what it means to you personally to have this done only a few hours ago? You weren't sure if he was in the state, let alone in the country.
The question is the relief for all of us. I mean, the relief for us in law enforcement is we feel an incredible amount of pressure to bring a person into custody, bring safety to the community. These professionals behind me and their teams, this is what they do. This is what they get paid to do, and they're honored to do the work on behalf of Minnesotans every single day. So the relief is that we can bring that sense of relief to communities across Minnesota, legislators that were on that list, and that's what we want to do.
Matt, at what point did you get the call and from whom generally that he was in that area in the arena?
The question was on the call and when did we get it. It was happening over the time. I don't have the specific timeline, but we were alerted as soon as there was a spotting of the person in the area for all of the command staff here, and as our teams continue to work and as they worked in and honed in.
Can you speak a little more about the technology that was used? You said today earlier that you received about 400 tips.
Yeah.
You know there was surveillance footage that was used for pictures. You just mentioned someone talked about the air team. Was it a fixed wing? Was it a helicopter that was following him? What role did technology?
Yeah, the question is what role, and I can't get into all the technology, obviously. Just some of it is that we don't share the information to make sure that we protect it, so it's utilized going forward. However, I will say that both UAVs throughout the day are incredibly important to our teams, unmanned aerial vehicles that we use, that there were numerous ones out there providing that, and then our helicopter in this situation provides an incredibly important bird's eye view that also allows us special views to be able to see individuals such as infrared and others that we utilize on a regular basis. So technology in cases like this are incredible tools to be able to supplement the great hard work of all the people that were on the ground every day. Let's go here first.
Where's he being held currently?
So right now he is being interviewed at a law enforcement facility. More information on where he will actually be ultimately will be released at a later time.
What law enforcement agency or facility?
I can't share where he is currently, but that information will be available soon.
Can you be more specific about the setting in which he was? I know there are things you can't give away, but we've seen things like trails and fields. You're talking about him crawling. What can you tell us about where he was hiding during this time?
Yeah, so this is, where was he hiding? This is in a rural area. These are fields and different wooded settings around, and that's where he was ultimately captured. Sibley County is, a rural county in the state of Minnesota, and so it's what a lot of that streams, fields, woods, crops, and so where he was ultimately taken into custody was in a field.
Did the infrared technology help find him, identify him from here?
I don't.
The commissioner had mentioned some of that earlier. I wonder if that's something that helped.
Yes, absolutely. It assisted previously, and they were out there. The helicopter was out there before the sun went down. But after that happened, yes, that technology did come into play.
How long did you know that he was there?
I'll turn that back over to the superintendent here too, but I don't think that that information is available right now. Superintendent.
Mark Bruley, Police Chief, Brooklyn Park. The question is how long did we know that he was there? A vehicle that we believe that he was in was spotted many hours before and had been abandoned. An alert police officer believed that he may have seen the individual running into the woods, and that started a large-scale perimeter that we set up, or down in Sibley County set up, and we started to deploy resources, including the Brooklyn Park SWAT team, and along with many other SWAT teams, to contain an extremely large area, knowing that this is a very dangerous individual. During that, we got privy to additional information of an individual that was in the woods, and that search went on for many hours until ultimately we were able to locate him in the woods. In approximately an hour and a half or so, we were able to close the distance in with the technology and the State Patrol helicopter, and where we were able to call him out to us.
Hi, please separate these news. Do you have any more information about the motive, and are you guys considering this an act of domestic terrorism?
Yeah, it's absolutely way too soon to say that right now. That's where the investigation, we have been just solely focused on the manhunt. And the goal is to give some calm to the situation of many individuals that were on the list that were worried about their safety. And this is a very dangerous individual for our community, and that's why so many resources and such a great collaboration came together to focus on removing him from society so that we can restore some sort of calm and bring some healing to our community and to our state. Now begins the hard work of looking at what the motive is, looking at putting this case together, and so that's yet to come.
And Mark, people that were on the list, what other, I know there are politicians from Wisconsin on the list, what other states have people on the list?
It was multiple states. I don't have the exhaustive list, but it was multiple states that were on there.
Do you have some states that were on the list?
We can, there's a few, I don't want to say it because it won't be exhaustive, but Wisconsin, Illinois, Michigan, some others that were on there. There was a variety in Nebraska, Iowa, we've had contact. What I will tell you, and I will not get into any more specifics beyond that, we are in coordination with our federal partners and our fusion centers in those states to coordinate with local law enforcement and the FBI in those states and the state fusion centers that are there to be able to provide that information and notify those individuals that they were on that list.
Are you concerned that there's other people out there that could have been working with them?
The question is, are we concerned there's other people out there that could be working with them? We will fully explore that. I've said on this, we are relatively confident, we are confident that the violence that he committed and the murders he committed and the attempted murders, that he conducted that activity alone. We will be exploring if there are any broader network. We have not uncovered any of that at this time, but that will be part of our investigation, and we will fully explore that. So thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. We can go. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Wow, a lot of information coming out of that press conference tonight. We learned some stunning new details about how they captured the suspect, Vance Boelter. And I have to say, some of the things that stuck out to me in that press conference was that he was armed when they brought him into custody, that he was in their sights for an hour and a half, and that he crawled to them, and he was taken into custody peacefully.
Yeah, it sounds like they knew where he was at a certain point, and they just slowly closed in.
That a police officer saw him running into a grove of trees.
And they mentioned calling out to him, so that's kind of, just like you see on a movie, they call out the name of the suspect. They let him know that you are surrounded, like there's no getting out of this, to try to break the will of the person. Also stood out to me, undoubtedly the largest manhunt in state history.
Yeah,
big statement from Police Chief Mark Bruley there. 20 SWAT teams. I mean, usually if there is a SWAT team at a crime location, that's a big deal. So 20 SWAT teams is exponentially bigger.
And it's interesting, it sounded like they needed it to make that massive perimeter. You can see, those forests and these massive fields that they had to secure in order to kind of slowly bring him out. And as he said, it took about an hour and a half. We have investigative reporter AJ Legault on the phone with us now, who's been talking to his sources as well. A stunning press conference that we listened to just now, AJ. And I understand you have a little more information on that period of time in that hour and a half when they believed they had him in the woods and they were narrowing in on him.
Yeah, Julie, this didn't come out at the press conference we all just listened to, but what my sources are telling me is what led law enforcement to that specific area is a neighbor who spotted Boelter on a trail camera, like hunters would use in rural areas, or landowners might have them up to spot trespassers, but that trail cam was what led law enforcement to that area. A neighbor spotted him and got a hold of law enforcement.
Yeah, it's stunning. And some of those trail cameras, you have to actually go out into the woods, take the chip out. Some of them broadcast it. It must be right into people's computers on Bluetooth. So
yeah, many of them have Bluetooth, and they're for spotting game. So a big deer goes by the trail cam, and the owner of the camera will get a picture sent right to his phone immediately. And I would surmise that's the type of camera we're talking about, is a live, a Bluetooth feed from the camera to whoever it was that spotted him. He raises certainly interesting questions about the reward that was listed.
Yeah, the FBI offering a $50,000 reward.
Yeah, and one thing that really jumped out to me listening to the press conference was they said he was armed when he was taken into custody. We know from the criminal complaint that the vehicle that was left at Speaker Hortman's home after the murders there had 3 AK-47 assault rifles and a 9mm handgun in it. And then they also found a disassembled 9mm handgun when they were searching the area. So that's 3 rifles, 2 handguns at that scene, and he was still armed when they took him into custody. So we know he had quite the arsenal at his disposal when all this started.
I'm sure residents in Green Isle and that surrounding area were on high alert and wanting to do whatever they could to help law enforcement apprehend him. We're thankful someone spotted him on a trail cam. AJ Legault, thanks so much for providing those details for us tonight. An emotional night for lawmakers, for the governor as well. He mentioned off the top of the press conference this will end 2 sleepless nights. And of course, a family that we are thinking of right now is the Hoffmans. For them to have know that a suspect has been apprehended has been a great relief. And we know that they also put out a statement tonight that we want to read to you as we close out our coverage here tonight. There is never a place for senseless political violence and loss of life. We are devastated by the loss of Melissa and Mark, and our hearts go out to all those who knew and loved them both. We are always at our best when we unite together. I think that's a wonderful note to end our coverage on tonight. We, of course, will pick up coverage starting with sunrise tomorrow morning at 4:30 a.m. But again, the suspect of the state's largest manhunt in state history has been apprehended tonight. 57-year-old Vance Boelter, now in custody and being questioned as we speak. We'll bring you all the latest details as we receive them starting tomorrow morning at 4:30. Thanks so much for watching tonight.
Good night.
Carpet